raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
We have been given a gift by God today to usher in a new dynasty.
Now you get RFK Jr.
Don't you want a president who's going to make America healthy again?
You get Tulsi Gabbard.
Putting our country in a continual state of war.
You get Elon Musk and you get J.D. Vance.
A hell of a way to start the next 4 years.
The right-wing Avengers.
We have an army of digital soldiers.
Department of Defense under Donald Trump will achieve peace through strength.
Shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one.
The rescission of 78 Biden-era executive actions, executive orders, presidential memoranda, and others.
The golden age of America has most definitely begun.
Begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay.
We're getting the dirt bags off these trees.
There's one guy who can fix this shit, and it's Donald Trump.
What's storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
There are many people in the world who really don't understand. Freedom has many difficulties, but we have never had to put a wall up to keep our people in. Freedom is indivisible. And when one man is enslaved, all are not free.
Modern war has become a struggle for men's minds as well as for their bodies. Today we face an enemy who spends enormous sums of money and manpower all over the globe in an attempt to subvert the thinking of the people of the free world, to confuse, divide, and ultimately to subjugate.
It is a contest unlike any we have ever faced in our history as a nation.
Contest for the minds and hearts of people around the world, all people.
When power corrupts, poetry cleanses. We must never forget that art is not a form of propaganda. It is a form of truth.
Psychologists find that control of emotions can be gained by understanding the stimulus-response pattern. Many everyday things become associated with these primary stimuli, partly by a process called conditioning.
It's a strange, shadowy world. The doctored photograph, the misquotation, the insinuation, and the lie.
I think of fire in connection with emotion. Cause, effect.
You've got to get a hold of yourself.
We have to work together. You have to help.
We'll light our country and all who serve it, and the glow from that fire can truly light the world.
Yes, in modern warfare, our military leaders are finding that words and ideas are highly effective weapons.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Josh. Welcome to the Red Pill Project's Daily Dose, live with you Monday through Friday. Hope everybody is doing well out there and having a fantastic start of your week, the last week of 2025. And I hope everybody out there had an amazing holiday, great Christmas, and everything after. So on a new computer. Well, not on I'm on my old computer tonight. Had some problems last night with my old computer, so I had to swap them, or my new computer, so I had to swap them out. So everything looks just a little bit different just because of the camera setting and things like that. Like I can go back a little bit, I think. Okay. It's just too close. There, give you some depth. All right. I hope everybody can hear me. I don't know. I didn't test really the audio. But I'm assuming since nobody's saying we can't hear you, you can hear me. And so Christmas, I hope it was wonderful for everybody. I had my birthday yesterday. Yesterday, the December 28th was my 44th birthday. And I know I don't look a day over 29, but I am 44. So yesterday was a great day. Spent it with my children and friends and had great conversations, had a good day. So that it was that. And now we are on to the end of 2025. And tonight we are talking about the 2025 Psyop. And see, I do a lot of contemplation on what's really happening in the world and why things are moving the way they're moving and why things perceived to be a certain way. And as we kind of look at how things are unfolding, we'll look at something here in a second, the Epstein files, for instance. We can begin to see the tactics and the strategies that Trump is actually using. And when we bring it down to the surface level, it's a psyop. It's not only a psyop on the deep state, it's a psyop on all of us. And the reason it's a psyop on all of us is because you can't just run a psyop on globally on one enemy, but not kind of bring everybody else into it, if you understand what I mean. That it ruins it. It displays that psyop in full force if everybody knew it was a psyop. And so you have to play it equally about. And this is kind of what we've been going through with 2025. And I know people are like, no, man, you're wrong. Okay, well, we will see. Because 2026, I think, is going to be absolutely epic. And I know, look, listen, I had some posts this last weekend. Where are the arrests? Like, I'm ready. I want to see some deep staters perp walked. I want to see some politicians arrested for this abrupt corruption. And in as much as my internal desires are like, oh my God, let's see it. And I do go out there and I do post it. I understand at the end of the day, have patience. There is things in the works. There are things happening that we are not seeing, that we don't know about. But if we watch the fruits of the labor of the Trump administration, we begin to see how it all comes together. So let's kind of just jump into it. So talking about the 2025 PSYOP, and, we immediately go to the Epstein files. Do you remember immediately when the Trump administration came in, they called all those influencers over there and they all came out with their binders like, oh my God, Epstein files. And we're like, those motherfuckers had nothing to do with any of the research done by the majority of us anons on the Epstein files. Why are they getting called into the White House? And what was inside of them was nothing more than just information we already had. Then about a month and a half later, Pam Bondi comes out, and Pam Bondi's like, I got the Epstein files on my desk and I reviewed them and they're grotesque and they're sick and there's people compromised and there's this video. And I said, hey, that video that she watched, because that video does exist, was a sitting U.S. senator. And I said, he's going to be retiring. He won't be seeking re-election. And sure enough, Dick Durbin, a week and a half later, came out and said, hey, I'm retiring. And by the way, Dick Durbin was one of the top senators trying to stop the release of the Epstein files. But then it flipped. Something happened. And we have Elon Musk leave the White House. He comes out and says, Trump's in the Epstein files. And I think that was a cue to the deep state, to the left, to the radical globalist, that, hey, the Biden administration, they did their job. They got rid of all the incriminating evidence on the royal families, the European elites, the global world leaders. They got rid of all of the incriminating evidence on all the Democrats, and that they planted the evidence on Donald Trump in there. The Katie Johnson story that's been rinsed and repeated since 2016. They put in some limo driver's testimony that has zero relevance, no information pertaining to this guy that courts didn't even find legitimate, that law enforcement didn't find legitimate, but yet they throw that in there. So Elon Musk comes out. Says Trump's in the Epstein files. And Alpha Warrior and myself came out immediately when this happened. We said, watch out, guys. This is a setup. This is a psyop being waged on the radical left, that they are trying to gain massive support from the left to call for the release of the Epstein files. They want Democrat politicians to come out and demand the Epstein files be released. You had Kevin Spacey, Steven Spielberg, you had Stephen King coming out there. Oh my God, release the Epstein files. We know they're implicated in them. But they were assured, oh, there's no incriminating evidence in their review. We took all that out. We took care of that. But if we go back to the FISA gate information, to the Russia information, I told you, I said, hey, the point of the Joe Biden administration was to go in there. Oh, my phone was to go in there. Put my phone on silent. Was to go in there and hide the evidence of their criminality, to destroy the evidence of their criminality, because if they couldn't stop Trump, they needed to at least stop him from going out there and arresting all of them for the criminality with a trail record of documents that there was. And we saw this with the Russia FISA gate information. Newly declassified information came out implicating NGOs, George Soros, Open Society Foundations, Hillary Clinton, information we'd never seen before. Oh, where did they find it? Oh, well, you know, in the 7th floor of the FBI, they discovered a broom closet, and inside this broom closet, it's a burn bag. Oh my God, a secret hidden skiff inside the 7th floor of the FBI nobody knew about. And then there's a burn bag with tons of documents in it. I told you straight up, I said there was no burn bag. There's no hidden skiff. Skiffs don't get hidden. That what this was a long-time military operation, probably originating around circa 2018, to preserve the information, the data on this, because they knew that people were trying to destroy it in the first Trump administration. They knew that if the Democrats ever got power and control again, they would go in there and destroy this information. And the NSA or the military or somebody went in there and preserved this documentation. They leaked it down through DNI Tulsi Gabbard, who gave it to the DOJ through criminal referral. Cash Patel gave it to the DOJ through criminal referral, and it started to come out. By this time, the Epstein psyop was in full effect. The Democrats are out there, release the Epstein files, and Trump's like, it's nonsense. There's nothing in there. It's a nothing burger. Why are you guys still talking about that? He's playing them like a fiddle. And so you get the Epstein bill that gets released by Congress. Everybody played their role. The Democrats came out and voted for it in full force. And the DOJ releases a bunch of new Epstein documentation, including all the stuff that we heard about Donald Trump, which has had zero impact whatsoever on the administration, which I believe, my thoughts, was that was not meant to have any impact right now. It was meant for after the midterms, for when the midterms came and they steal the election in the midterms, the Democrats, and they utilize that Epstein information as a precursor to go out there and impeach Donald Trump. That's my thought on it. But what just happened? This is where it gets really interesting. Donald Trump baited Bill Clinton the other day. About a week and a half ago, he comes out and says, look, I like Bill Clinton. Me and Bill Clinton, we've been friends for a long time, but there's some very incriminating evidence inside the Epstein files that implicates Bill Clinton. And he goes, unfortunately, I don't know what to say, but we had not seen that information. So Bill Clinton, his office comes out and releases a statement saying, hey, DOJ, Pam Bondi, Donald Trump, if you got information implicating Bill Clinton, we give you full permission to release it all. Because Bill Clinton, Hillary, all these people, they believed this information was destroyed, was removed, that any account of criminality on their behalf within the Epstein compromise was removed. It's gone. The day after Christmas, Donald Trump posts this. And you just got to love the methodical nature of how Donald Trump operates, right? Now 1 million more pages on Epstein are found. The DOJ is being forced to spend all of its time on this Democrat-inspired hoax. When do they say no more? And the work on election fraud, etc. The Dems are the ones who worked with Epstein, not the Republicans. Release all of their names, embarrass them, and get back to helping our country. The radical left doesn't want people talking about Trump and Republican success. Only a long ago dead Jeffrey Epstein, just another witch hunt. 1 million more Epstein documents found through the Southern District of New York. I wonder. So, by the way, 1 million documents. He says million more pages. This isn't 1 million more pages. There wasn't 1 million pages to begin with. This is 1 million pages. And you got to understand, that's like an 80-story building if you stacked all of that on top of each other. That's a massive amount of documentation. Now, is the DOJ going to do a good job classifying and redacting things like they did last time? Probably. To where you can go in and see all the redacted information because they're going to use Adobe Editor and they're going to do it wrong. And they're doing it wrong for a reason. They wanted you to find that information. Don't look at it as like, oh, the DOJ just redacted all this information and put it out there and we can just use this editor to go in there and edit out and find out what the redactions are. They did that on purpose, people. That was intentional. And Donald Trump's playing his part. 1 million more. And what does he say? It was the Dems who worked with Epstein. He doesn't say it was the Dems that are implicated by Epstein. He says the Dems that worked with Epstein. What is he talking about there? He's talking about how Jeffrey Epstein was an asset utilized from 2016 to his death in 2019 by the Democrats to set up Donald Trump. That they went through and created compromise on Donald Trump and implemented it into the Epstein files. He was the bait that was utilized. That there's corroboration, collusion directly with Jeffrey Epstein and the Democrats. And I'm pretty sure within this 1 million new documents, you're going to find some things that are going to implicate Jeffrey Epstein and lots of Democrats even further. It's coming. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that Donald Trump played the left. He played the Democrats. And they're beginning to get a taste of what 2025 was really all about. It was the largest Psyop, 1 year long Psyop of the new administration coming in for the first year. I mean, listen, I don't like Susie Wiles. I'm not a big fan of Pam Bondi. I believe they're Bush holdovers, and I think that their loyalty will lie with the next person that comes in the power. That's just my thoughts on it. I don't know them personally like Donald Trump does. Do I trust them? No, but Donald Trump does, and so I got to respect that. But the one thing about Susie Wiles that bothers me is the Vanity Fair article. Think about the Vanity Fair article that came out about Susie Wiles for a second. Now, everybody on X is playing this as like, oh my God, Susie Wiles is a moron. How is she so gullible? She's not. That's the problem. She's not stupid. She's not gullible. She is highly intelligent. You don't work your way up to the chief of staff to the president of the United States of America by being a complete fucking moron. You don't work your way up to that position, then give a 11-month interview every weekend while doing your laundry, smoking your Virginia Slims, and telling all of the insides of the White House. Oh, Donald Trump reminds me of my alcoholic father. You know, J.D. Vance is a conspiracy theorist, and the only reason that he likes Donald Trump is political in nature so that he could once rise to power. Elon Musk is a drug addict with a ketamine addiction. That's like fuel for the Democrat fire. They love that shit. Now they can use all that. It shows instability. It shows uncoordination, disorganization within the White House. Why would she do that? Was she just being candid, truthful, and honest? No, it was a psyop. It was done that way for a reason. How do you ensure that your enemy doesn't fight back when you're making moves and dismantling parts of their system? You give them the impression that they are in control, that they are coming from a position of strength. Susie Wiles was part of this, and she knew exactly what she was doing. Everything that she said in that Vanity Fair article was meant to instill within the people in power that they were still in control. That the Trump administration is just going to crash and burn on their own accord because they don't know what they're doing. They're incompetent. Yeah, they can go out there and they can make tariffs and do all of these changes, and they can go out there and indict a few people and arrest certain people. But once we got back in the power, oh, that's all going to change. And then we'll go use lawfare and go back after them. That's how their mentality works. But it wasn't real. It was an illusion that was generated by information. It was a Psyop in process that brings about the Psyop. Check this one out. And I said this. I've been very, very clear. I said, listen, the reason for the Obama administration to use lawfare against President Trump in 2016 wasn't to regain power. They would have been all right with acquiescing power for 4 years to another person. But it was because of the intentionality of who Donald Trump was, who was behind him, the military, and what they knew that they were looking for and trying to do. See, the Obama administration wanted to stop Trump in 2016 because they did not want the Trump administration to find out the criminality, the treason, the collusion that they had done with foreign nationals, foreign intelligence agents, and NGOs. They were trying to cover up their crimes. And they did a very good job of it from 2016 to 2020 with impeachment 1, impeachment 2, the Mueller investigation, and all the distractions from COVID, etc., that they utilized against Donald Trump. It was a complete psychological warfare operation for 4 years. And they did that to provide the necessary distractions so that Donald Trump could never get a foothold as to the levels of their corruption and criminality. And I said, if you go to the Q boards, if you go and look, the one specific, FISA equals start, think layers, foundation. One thing leads to another. You start with FISA and it goes backwards and it goes forward. FISA, you go forward, it comes up into impeachment 1, impeachment 2, Mueller investigation, the corruption behind all of that. Goes to 2018 midterms and how they were stolen. George Soros and the Open Societies Foundation funding attorney generals and Secretary of States in various different select states. Why? Because they knew preemptively of what was going to come in 2020 with COVID-19. It goes into COVID-19. It goes into January 6th, the stolen election, goes into 2024. But if you go back from 2016 prior, you got things like Benghazi. You got Extortion 17. You got Uranium 1. You got Fast and Furious. You have Barack Obama opening the door through executive order for China to walk into the U.S. electric and telecommunications grid. You had the United States being sold off part and parcel to China from 2008 to 2016 by the Obama administration. They didn't want Trump to find that information out. Trump knew. And he did very little that he could do in that time frame. But now it's time for action. Now it's time to go out there and kick some ass. But to do that, you can't just go and attack the belly of the beast. If you got this massive beast that has immense power, you don't go out there and start arresting its lieutenants and its middlemen and its middle managers. You have to dismantle the whole system all at once. You have to rip down its foundation, which is money and financing. You have to take apart and dismantle its command and control center, which is Europe, which is the UK, which is royal families, bloodlines, secret societies. Then this happened. It just came out this the last few days. It's a big one. It's something that I said was going to happen. It was coming. We all knew it. Epstein ties to Hillary Clinton could be locked behind a laptop, and Senator Grassley wants it now. Go back about 6 months, and I said, Wiener laptop will be coming up in the news. I promise you, Wiener laptop. Senator Chuck Grassley is turning up the heat with a December 15th letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel demanding a pile of documents by today. This was yesterday. He wants everything from Anthony Weiner's infamous laptop seized back in 2016 with thousands of Clinton-linked emails to pass DOJ roadblocks to the Clinton Foundation probes. We're talking search warrants, affidavits, emails, ties to the Clintons, Huma Abedin, and even the 2018 OIG report request. In the 2018 OIG report request, Horowitz, this is what the smoking gun implicates Hillary Clinton in massive treason, even though Horowitz never acted upon it. Comey said there was no information to move on it. This goes back to the Inspector General McCullough testifying in front of the House Intelligence Community in 2016, talking about SAPs, USAPs, CAP programs, all of this were the emails that Jake Sullivan put Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State into access with when she shouldn't have been in those special access programs to begin with. And she was replying and forwarding those specific emails, 38 of them, from her home email server to her Secretary of State email server, which there was a script running in the metadata on that home email server. Awan is the one that set that up, right? That would send it to a Gmail address, which was accessed geolocation by China. We remember all this. Grassley cites whistleblowers exposing Obama-era interference, like FBI brass choking off access to Weiner's device during the 2016 mess. Back then, Comey's October surprise review found duplicate, but no new charges, with new records showing McCabe and others shielding the powerful. This could blow open old scandals. Now, talking about Comey there, and this is why I do believe Comey is the one who blew the whistle this last time. He got afraid when Trump got reelected. He used the 86-47 whole scam to get Secret Service's attention to go in there and begin singing like a bird. Because we know that 3 days prior, was it a week or 3 days? It was October 31st, before the 2016 election. We know this from the boards that Admiral Rogers from the National Security Agency, if you go back to the Clinton Lynch tarmac meeting, this was back in June 28th, I believe, June 28th of 2016. Bill Clinton meets with Loretta Lynch in Phoenix Airport on the tarmac early in the morning. A local Fox News affiliate reporter by the name of Christopher Sine gets a phone call that morning. You need to get a crew down to the airport immediately. He later put in his book Memoirs that person was high up in the U.S. intelligence apparatus in Washington, D.C., goes by the codename of S. Just so happens that Christopher Sine went to the University of Alabama, played D1 football, and shared the same fraternity as another person in Washington, D.C., who is very much older than him, but was a high-ranking person within the Gang of Eight, within the Senate Intelligence Committee, by the name of Jeff Sessions. S. Christopher Sine goes down there with a news crew, and what happens? The NSA logs the conversation between Bill Clinton and Loretta Lynch, where Bill Clinton promises Loretta Lynch a Supreme Court seat if she drops the charges on Hillary Clinton. Admiral Rogers goes in there, mislogs the recording, saves a copy of it. Now, what happens next? Obviously, with newly declassified information that came out in 2025, we find out George Soros's Open Society Foundation went out there. They had concocted a plan to run with a Russian narrative against Donald Trump to help Hillary Clinton. The HRC agreed, and they begin this planning and coordination. July 4th weekend, Hillary Clinton with James Comey. July 7th, she's with Barack Obama. They dropped the case on, I believe, July 11th, 2016 on Hillary Clinton after the tarmac meeting. And then what happens? On August 4th, they had the big White House meeting. August 14th, another one. And this is where they begin FISA-gate, or the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. They closed the Clinton email investigation. They opened up the investigation directly into Donald Trump. And this was the plan of how they were going to fight back against Donald Trump and take him down. But obviously, this has backfired over the last decade. Now, going back to Hillary Clinton, why this is important. So when we start to look at Grassley wanting this information specifically, Huma Abedin kept an insurance file on Hillary Clinton. Her father, I believe his name is Saeed Abedin, was one of the founders of the League of Arab Nations, I believe it is, back in the 1960s. He was one of the primary financiers out of Saudi Arabia for the Muslim Brotherhood. Okay. So who controlled Hillary Clinton? Well, it was most likely the Muslim Brotherhood, who utilized Huma Abedin as a handler for Hillary Clinton, where she kept an insurance file on Hillary Clinton, but she kept it on Congressman Weiner's laptop. Now, Congressman Anthony Weiner, well, He was texting 15, 16-year-old girls naked pictures of himself, which got captured by the National Security Agency. And the National Security Agency just happened to put an anonymous tip out to the NYPD to go in there, and he lost his whole career over this. And what happens is, obviously, they get a hold of the laptop of the NYPD. The FBI goes in, takes a copy of the laptop. They open up a file on there called insurance, and there's some pretty damning information in there, including what we've heard to be a 555 raw video, massive compromise on Hillary Clinton that Huma Abedin and Anthony Weiner were holding. Well, Grassley wants this because what else was in those emails? It was the SAP programs. It was the emails that she was sending over to the Gmail address. It was all of this. It was collaboration, coordination, personal emails. Grassley wants to open this back up. You got to remember, there's no statute of limitations on treason. So this is pretty huge because now this brings about more implication on Comey, on McCabe, on Rosenstein, and all of these guys. Yeah, and I love it. Eric Daughtery says this today. The Epstein files just backfired on the Democrats. President Trump dropped a nuke tonight. Trump says Democrat names are about to come out from the Epstein files. Enjoy what may be your last Merry Christmas when it is revealed that the Democrats, there will be a lot of explaining to do. And so he says it here. Merry Christmas to all, including many sleazebags who loved Jeffrey Epstein, gave him bundles of money, went to his island, attended his parties, and thought he was the greatest guy on earth, only to drop him like a dog when things got too hot. Falsely claimed they had nothing to do with him, didn't know him, said he was a disgusting person, and then blame, of course, President Donald J. Trump, who is actually the only one who did drop Epstein, and long before it became fashionable to do so. When their names get brought out into the ongoing radical left witch hunt, plus one low-life Republican Massey, and it is revealed that they are Democrats, there will be a lot of explaining to do, much like there was when it was made public that the Russia hoax was a fictitious story, a total scam. And it had nothing to do with Trump. The failing New York Times and many others was forced to apologize for their bad and faulty election reporting, even to the point of losing many subscribers due to their highly inaccurate coverage. Now the same losers are at it again. Only this time, so many of their friends, mostly innocent, will badly be hurt by the reputation tarnished. But sadly, that's the only way it is in the world of the Democrat politics. Enjoy what may be your last Merry Christmas, President Donald J. Trump. The next day is when he released the information stating that there's 1 million new documents coming out about Jeffrey Epstein. Huge. Okay, so we had the Jeffrey Epstein psyop that played out. And we talked about this months ago, how all of this aligns and fits together, how Epstein is related to FISA-gate, how it's related to Obama's corruption. You're beginning to see it now, how it all kind of comes together, and why it's obviously not going away. All right, give me a second here. I'm going to check something out. Okay, let me see something. I'm just checking something out real quick here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do this guy right here for everybody on Rumble. If anybody's interested in this ad I'm about to read for Rumble, you can go on over to Rumble and find the information on it. I love these guys, so definitely go out there and support them if you can. I want to share with you a quick story about a family supporting this channel. Their father had a rare form of cognitive decline due to his military service that made him unable to work. Their mother had to stop working too so she could care for him. Their sons discovered the new U.S. Library of Medicine studies on various mushroom blends that could significantly support cognitive function, so they began creating a complex mushroom supplement based on that research, not just to help their own family, but to help others. They nearly quit after multiple setbacks, having their first big batch stolen. Fast forward, now they speak at medical conventions nationwide. Their company is called Emerald Med, and their product massively supports brain, immune, blood, plus heart function. Your cognitive function optimizes everything you do. You can get knee, heart, and kidneys replaced, but you can't get a new brain. So investing in the only brain you have for the rest of your life matters. If you want to support a company that supports our channel plus free speech with their marketing, and you want to try a strong mushroom supplement, they're running a New Year's deal. Just click the link below and use the code 30% off today. It's currently the most concentrated mushroom gummy in the US and has up to 400 compounds and is rich in vitamins plus minerals with 6 formulas in one. It's like getting 6 supplements for the price of one. You can click the link below or try Emerald Med's mushroom gummies 30% off today. All right. Thank you for letting me do that right there. It just brings about a good segue for me because now I can go transition. So in the beginning of my intro, you have Kash Patel on a podcast saying, we're going to shut down the FBI building. On December 26th, FBI Director Kash Patel announced exactly that. Look at this. Shutting down the Hoover building. After more than 20 years of failed attempts, we finalized a plan to permanently close the FBI's Hoover headquarters and move the workforce into a safe, modern facility. Working directly with President Trump and Congress, we accomplished what no one else could do. When we arrived, taxpayers were about to be on the hook for nearly $5 billion of new headquarters that wouldn't open until 2035. We scrapped that plan. Instead, we selected the already existing Reagan building, saving billions and allowing the transition to begin immediately with required safety and infrastructure upgrades already underway. Once complete, most of the headquarters FBI workforce will move in, and the rest are continuing our ongoing push to put more manpower in the field where they will remain. This decision puts resources where they belong, defending the homeland, crushing violent crime, and protecting national security. It delivers better tools for today's FBI workforce at a fraction of the cost. The Hoover building will be shut down permanently. So I have a few thoughts on this. And let me take a sip before we get into this. It's not soda, it's Zevia. It's good stuff. They don't sponsor me. I want you to begin to think about what's going to take place when they begin to shut down the Hoover building and move to the new building. They're going to have to go through every nook and cranny of that FBI building. Every secret office, closed door, broom closet, skiff. They're going to have to take all the documents out that are there, stored in file folders. I only wonder what they're going to discover as they begin to move out of the Hoover building. I only imagine what new documents are going to arise with moving out of the Hoover building. Because you got to remember, Kash Patel said, hey, look, we're just walking around the 7th floor of the FBI and whoa, what's this door? It's locked. Oh, let me go check my desk. Oh, there's a key. Open up. It's a secret skiff that nobody knew about. And inside is burn bags with tons of classified documents implicating the deep state. Huh. Crazy. Well, that excuse only works once. So what's the next excuse? How do you get the next tranche of evidence to come about? Hey, we were moving the FBI Hoover building, and sure enough, we're in the basement and more burn bags just sitting there. Sure enough, they're from Russiagate. Sure enough, they're from Hillary Clinton's email scandal. Sure enough, they implicate Barack Obama. Man, I'm telling you, you pay attention to this. They're going to start moving the Hoover building, and they're going to uncover tranches of new classified documents that will be declassed, sent to the DOJ for criminal referrals. And they'll say, we didn't even know they're there. More confirmation on something that I've talked about multiple different times before over the last few years. Svetlana Lokhova, if you remember, she was implicated within the original Russiagate with General Flynn. She goes, why they raided Mar-a-Lago? She goes, my evidence. She goes, Brennan's CIA and Comey's FBI ran anti-Trump ops from the UK via Steph Halper and Christopher Steele. True. Gina Haspel was head of the CIA station in London. Alan Kohler was the FBI liaison. In 2016, to stop Donald Trump, the false story was fabricated in London by intel operatives, Halper and Steele, that I had an affair with General Flynn and that I was a Russian spy. This was used to investigate the Trump campaign and later the Trump administration, leading to appointment of Mueller. They were hoping to impeach the president. President Trump tried to declassify these documents in 2018, but Haspel, Wray, and Rosenstein and co. stopped the declassification, claiming it would hurt relationships with the top ally, Britain, and endanger national security. In fact, the declassification would have endangered the deep state. On December 30th, 2020, at the end of his first term, President Trump finally declassified documents revealing the FBI, CIA, and British intelligence operations against him, but was not even allowed by the intelligence community to declassify the words London and or the United Kingdom. We've talked about this. The Helper UK documents then got retroactively reclassified by Biden's national security team, Obama, Comey, Brennan's loyalists, in May of 2022. It was actually just a few days after the Biden administration came in, they reclassified this documentation. I talked about this extensively over the last few years, that it was the Crossfire Hurricane binder that Donald Trump declassified on December 20. So it was, you got to remember, you go back to Donald Trump's tweets. I think it was September 20th, 2020. Donald Trump on Twitter at the time comes out and he goes, I hereby declassify all information pertaining to Crossfire Hurricane and the Hillary Clinton email investigation effective immediately. Then in December 20th, 2020, he does the same thing again. And so he must have signed this into order on December 30th. Maybe her time frame's off or my time frame's off, but that was done to two different tweets on Twitter. Okay. Now we got to remember the documentation didn't actually get released because it went to the FBI for redactions, didn't get released till January 17th, 2021. This was the Crossfire Hurricane binder, which I said Donald Trump took a copy of the declassified Crossfire Hurricane binder with him when he left. Days later, after the Biden administration came in, they reclassified it under the guise of national security. This is what she's talking about. The docs were raided by the FBI team headed by the head of counterintelligence, former FBI London liaison Alan Kohler, who knew Helper and Steele. The documents were then hidden. They thought forever. Deep staters stated that the documents are highly classified, sensitive, and that President Trump should be severely punished for storing them because he endangered national security. In fact, it was the deep state that was endangered. President Trump was then charged under the Espionage Act. Fortunately, President Trump won the election. The charges were dropped. President Trump finally declassified the full documents this year. It has now been confirmed that the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago illegally. They did not have probable cause. So when we talk about the red binder, the red folder, this is what I've been talking about. There's lots of other stuff that was in there that Trump took with him, certain memos pertaining to other things, but this was the main specifics that they wanted out there. Now, MI6 was one of the lead intelligence operatives that were behind all of this within 2016. You got to remember, there was a 16-year plan with Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. Okay. When we look at that, we always think like, oh, it's Barack Obama and Hillary. No. This is the globalist. This is the Euro-centered globalist. This is the World Economic Forum. This is the infiltration of the United Nations, the control of the various political centers within all the Western nations. And the U.S. was just going through the movements of collapse so that they could usher in their new world order. And Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton were the end game within this 100-year-long conspiracy to take down the United States of America. Excuse me. So when we start to look at Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, when we say that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton had a 16-year plan, it's really the globalist 16-year plan for the collapse of the United States of America, but it was being implemented through Barack Obama's 8 years and Hillary Clinton's 8 years. And what did we find out? Well, it didn't quite work out well for them. See, the European Union, the EU or Britain, the UK, however you want to look at that organization, the old guard, as I call it, they continued their progression of collapse towards the New World Order. Well, Donald Trump came in and basically put a fork in the spokes. They thought in 2020 they would recapture that momentum and move towards their Agenda 2030 plan. But Russia and China had different thoughts on it. Without China coordinating directly with the globalists during this point in time, it really wrecked and ruined a lot of their visions of the New World Order. And this came about through the formulation of the BRICS nations and through the Belt and Road Initiative that China was laying out that was undermining a lot of what Europe was doing. So when Donald Trump comes back in 2025, he immediately begins dismantling the economic power of this globalist transnational cartel. Everything from Doge, USAID, illicit criminal activities, gun running, human trafficking, drug trafficking. All of this is how this whole system survives. It's how the money gets laundered. Jeffrey Epstein was an intermediary manager, a middleman, financial handler for intelligence agencies, MI6, Mossad, and the CIA. He controlled the criminal elite and their money, taking a cut for himself and others in intelligence agencies. How do you launder money from drug smugglers, human traffickers, and arms dealers? Jeffrey Epstein. That is your intermediary that you need in that system in order for that to happen. We've seen this recently, and Whitney Webb and Mike Benz have talked about this with Aden Khashoggi and how Jeffrey Epstein, through Bear Stearns with BCCI Bank, was laundering money from the Iran-Contra arms deals directly into legitimate business structures and then paying out after that. So if we look at what Donald Trump's done over the last year, he's dismantling the financial infrastructure. You say, well, how is he doing that? Well, tariffs, new trade deal negotiations, reducing the U.S. trade deficit. The U.S. trade deficit, they took away from the profitability of the United States of America, and the deficit comes about to bring about profitability for the globalist organizations that are on the upswing of basically bad trade deals for the United States of America. Why? Because of inflation. Currencies devaluing over time. You have to keep profitability within the system and capital keep on flowing. And so Donald Trump going out there and reducing the trade deficit to near zero in the sense of billions of dollars, then implementing tariffs onto these various different countries, this undermines the central bankers in London. This undermines what they've worked for 100 years to try to get policy and regulation on their side, specifically within the United States of America. Then you have him targeting the cartels, drug runners, arms dealers, human traffickers, dismantling their criminal infrastructure. So this transnational organization, now and then he's defunding NGOs. He's defunding the system of U.S. aid going into foreign countries, which doesn't really go into foreign countries. It goes into a bank account. That bank account then distributes to NGOs, and the NGOs give very, very little services or products to those countries, but that money flows right back into Washington, D.C., right back in the defense contractors or other types of contractors, and right into the pockets of billionaires around the world for whatever radical agenda that they want to portray. And we quintessentially shut that down. But now we're starting to see it be revealed on the state level. Now it is being dismantled on the state level. Independent journalist Nick Shirley attempt this last week to go out into Minnesota, my state, which, by the way, we knew about this. We've known about this for a while. We reported on this when it was happening in 2019. Nobody wanted to listen. Nobody cared. But let's listen to Nick Shirley here and his awesome reporting, and a job well done to him out there.
I knocked on the door, and to my surprise, somebody actually answered the door.
Hello? Can we speak? I would like to check a child in the daycare. Why? Can I speak to a manager? Where can I get paperwork to file for my son? I wanted to put my son Joey in daycare.
And after a few questions, the lady went silent.
Looks like little Joey Shirley ain't going to daycare here. And now where are we going?
Now we're going to Sweet Angel Child Care.
We're in the middle of a strip mall here inside of this neighborhood.
In fiscal year 2025, this facility, which has its license for 74 kids, was paid $1.26 million in tax money. And there are no kids, and all the facilities are the same way, all of them.
Let's see if anyone opens.
Yeah, let's see.
Once again, I try to find a spot for my son Joey, and they would not open the door.
I want to put my son Joey in daycare. Cuz I need a spot to put my son Joey.
Yes.
Is this your daycare center?
No, I work there. What's happened?
I just want to put a child in daycare, but all the daycare centers seem to be closed. No one's opening the doors.
You work here?
I was, yeah. What's happened?
Where are the kids?
Yeah?
It says it's licensed for 74 children. Right here, state of Minnesota. Where are the kids? They got paid $1.26 million in fiscal year 2025. It says they have a capacity for 74 children.
When?
Where are the kids? Right here. State of Minnesota website. You work here and you don't know?
I don't know. I was there before. I don't know what's going on.
Were there any kids when you worked here?
He's there. Kids there.
How many?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Yeah.
You worked here. Okay, well then you're not of any help.
Can I put my son in a daycare here?
No, I don't know.
Can I speak to someone?
No, I don't know.
No? Yeah, I would like to see if I can put my son Joey here.
Who's your son, Joey?
My son Joey. Can I check out daycare center?
No! You're a liar. I'm the owner.
Do you
He's a liar. I'm the owner. What Nick Shirley is uncovering here is something that you're about to find out over the course of the next few months is rampant in every state in the United States, of how federal funds and state funds are being allocated to absolutely fraud, whether it's Medicaid and Medicare, whether it's housing, or whether it's childcare. It's happening everywhere. So Minnesota fraud, Attorney General Pam Bondi came out today, tagged the wrong Nick Shirley, said, Nick has helped show Americans the scale of fraud in Tim Walz's Minnesota. The Justice Department has been investigating this for months. So far, we've charged 98 individuals, 85 of Somali descent, and more than 60 have been found guilty in court. We have more prosecutions coming. Buckle up, lawmakers. Now, unfortunately for Pam Bondi, she's a little truthful here, but not very truthful here. Yes, they have been investigating Minnesota more for the Medicaid, Medicare fraud that's been going on over there, but they did not and had not been touching on this topic of the child care centers. And the 98 individuals is actually over the course of the last 7 years. But she's just trying to gain case. Now, FBI Director Kash Patel said, the FBI is aware of recent social media reports in Minnesota. However, even before the public conversation escalated online, the FBI had surged personnel and investigative resources to Minnesota to dismantle the large-scale fraud schemes exploiting federal programs. Fraud that steals from taxpayers and robs vulnerable children will remain a top FBI priority in Minnesota and nationwide. To date, the FBI dismantled a $250 million scheme that stole federal food and meant for vulnerable children during COVID. The investigation exposed sham vendors, shell companies, and large-scale money laundering tied to feeding our future network. The case led to 78 indictments, 57 convictions. Defendants included Abdi Wabab Ahmad Muhammad, Ahmed Ali, Hussein Farah, Abdullah Nur Jaswa, Ashwan Farhan Hassan, Osama Camarera. But by the way, Ahmad Ali, by the way, is one of the prominent supporters of Tim Walz and other Democrats, including Ilham Omar out here. And so then, obviously, following the exposure of millions of dollars in fraud of Somali-run care centers in Minnesota, similar concerns are now surfacing in Washington State, where 539 out of the 5,000 licensed care centers are Somali-run and lack any physical address. Now, the Small Business Administration has frozen all of Minnesota grants after the $500 million Somali fraud scheme has been exposed. Now, thank goodness they're freezing the money. And then today, Minnesota Governor Walz came out there and he signed a law that allows illegals to get driver's licenses in 2023 and even vote in U.S. elections. Minnesota is a captured state, and the federal government needs to intervene immediately. So the Minnesota Somali fraud plot deepens. Fake child care centers caught donating to Democrats. Yeah, that's right. They were donating to Democrats. Maximum donations from each one of these types of child care centers. I mean, come on. Why are we not arresting politicians yet? How come there's no implication of politicians from Tim Walz all the way to Keith Ellison to Ilham Omar on any of this? Now, one of those people that were arrested under the state of Minnesota in the Medicaid fraud, who defrauded over $2.5 million, was just released by a federal judge in Minnesota, to the point where the Attorney General, radical lefty Keith Ellison, said, this is wrong. You should have prosecuted this guy. There's some crazy shit going on. But here's the thing. It's not just Minnesota. It's not just Minnesota. Dude, it is Ohio, Michigan, New York, California. It's everywhere. It's even in Florida. Now, another great thing right here. A federal lawsuit has been sent in today for the smurfing of U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar. This is my senator, totaling almost $9.6 million. Klobuchar and her treasurer, Samuel Clark, have been stealing the identities of elderly senior citizens to carry out their smurfing. Smurfing is criminally laundering money into political campaigns. Amy Klobuchar is not a U.S. senator, and she massively cheated in her election. Yep, using smurfing. What is smurfing? This is what James O'Keefe and them uncovered a few years ago, where basically you are using the identities of other people to max out donations to various different candidates, and by these candidates never actually donated that money. Now, I'll make this statement. I'm going to make this statement. We have a problem in America. It doesn't matter if it's Republican or Democrat, state or federal. The problem is consistently the same: missing money. The kicker, the money isn't intentionally missing. It wasn't magically lost. We yell and scream when banks get bailouts and what is orchestrated as a wealth transfer. Yet the largest wealth transfer happens every day in between the accounting records and the voting trends of politicians. The lobby is the greatest enemy to the American people. If you want corporations to have less influence, foreign nations to get less attention, you need to eradicate the lobby. Period. Hands down. I love this. We're talking about luring centers, not learning centers, luring centers, right? Next Shirley, Minnesota, and how this corruption and crime is embezzling U.S. taxpayer dollars out of things that actually need it and into the pockets of NGOs and foreign nations. How about this one? Chinese investment firms are buying up hundreds of American schools. Chinese-owned groups have been buying up schools across the United States, including Spring Education Group, with the ownership of 240 schools across 19 states. This should not be allowed to happen. This should be immediate intervention by the Trump administration, putting a stop on these types of sales. To U.S. education should be a national security concern, and foreign nations should not have any type of profitability or influence control over any U.S. education center. But like I said, this is happening everywhere, and it's happening with everything. So check this one out. Even after near record returns in the state of California, the California State Retirement Fund is still $166 billion short. It's $166 billion short. Where's the money, Gavin? See, the Democrats, they use taxpayer money as their own piggy bank, and they've created regulation and policy through laws, basically lobbied through lobbyists, NGOs, and foreign nations to go out there and implement programs, whether it was grants or federal aid or whatever it might be, to launder that money through NGOs and the private organizations back into their pockets. It's the greatest wealth transfer in human history, and it happened right under our nose, and we couldn't do anything about it because everybody was in on it. Republicans and Democrats alike. And that's the one thing that they're protecting right now. This is why you're not going to see politicians being targeted, why you're not going to hear about politicians being arrested, why Governor Walz is going to be able to walk probably free after all this shit, because if you take Walz down, you got to take them all down. You got to take the Republicans down too if you go after the Democrats. Remember that. That's the big thing to understand here. You go after the Democrats, you got to take the Republicans with you. And we talked about it. It's in real estate as well. Somali immigrant-owned housing developer was given more than $1 million in deposits for a community to be built in Somalians and Muslim families in Lakeville, Minnesota. The Somali named Abdulwali Abdullahi pocketed all the money and didn't build a single home. This is what happens when you import the third world. The third world comes to you. Am I the only one who's screaming out loud, fuck this bullshit? I agree with you. So we have to put it into the hands of the DOJ. We have to see what the DOJ is going to do with it. But I'm telling you, if this comes out and it's just these Somalis that are implicated in this, and there's no tiebacks to NGOs, no tiebacks to politicians, oh, I'm going to be pissed. People need to be put in jail. And I don't mean just these Somalis. I mean the politicians behind them. I mean the politicians that knew this was going on. Tom Emmer, my congressman, District 6 in Minnesota, just the other day, put out, he goes, what Nick Shirley is exposing is rampant fraud within Minnesota, and this needs to end, and the DOJ needs to investigate this. Hey, Tom Emmer, you knew about this back in 2018 when it was first reported, and you did nothing. Tom Emmer, you're the majority whip. You knew about this over the last almost decade. You did nothing. Why? Because the Minnesota Democrats control the Minnesota Republicans. Tom Emmer doesn't win elections. He's allowed to win elections to show some illusion of partisanship in the state. That's how stolen elections work with compromised states. The Republicans are allowed to win in certain districts, but those people are most likely on their payroll. That's my thoughts on it. So there's much more cleanup to be done here in the United States of America. We have a lot of things that need to change before this system is completely fucking eradicated. Now, going into the next part of the show, because wait, there's more. Gotta love it. And give me a second. Let me do our segue here. Trying to find something good. It's just nothing here. We can do that one. We're going to do this one right here. All right. For Rumble, if anybody's interested in this, go on Rumble. It's another Emerald Med. I want to share a quick story about a farming family supporting this channel. 8 years ago, their brother returned from Afghanistan with significant injuries. They watched he became a shell of his former self and lost the ability to function. We can't share his exact story because of FDA restrictions, but friends kept suggesting CBD, so we tried dozens of CBD products, but nothing helped. Out of frustration, they began to create their own. They started making it to help friends, family have CBD that they knew was as clean and powerful as possible. Then doctors started asking to carry it, and it took off. Now they speak at medical conventions and help others across the U.S. Well, most companies have 1 to 10 compounds in CBD oil. Their oil has up to over 50 compounds. They have 8 things that make their products different. They make bombs, gummies, pet products, etc. They called Emerald Med. You should check these guys out. If you get their CBD and don't notice big difference, they'll actually provide a refund. If you want to support a business that supports our channel and free speech with marketing dollars, and if you need a source for CBD that's real, they're running a New Year's deal. You can click the link below or to try Emerald Med, 40% off today. Get extreme muscle and joint relief, get significant inflammation plus circulation support quality sleep, or even daytime calm. They're worth a try at least once. Just click the link below and use the code 40% off up to 2 items today. And that's on Rumble if anybody wants to check that out. All right. So let's get into a little bit more current news. Russia. So Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov made it explicit. Any European troops stationed in Ukraine become legitimate military targets for Russia. Not concerning, not regrettable, legitimate targets, meaning Russia will shoot and kill. This kills the entire framework Trump's team has been negotiating. Remember the proposed International Stabilization Force, the technocratic Palestinian government model applied to Ukraine, European peacekeepers monitoring a demilitarized zone. Russia just said, send them and we'll kill them. So I disagree with kind of the context of that because, yeah, they talked about an international security force, but not necessarily for Ukraine. So Lavrov is actually referring to active NATO troops, British troops in Ukraine right now. And he's doing this specifically because of something that happened last week. So he's basically saying, if there is NATO or British troops or other European troops in Ukraine, they are active targets. Now, the reason he said that is, there it is. I had to find the article. is because of something that happened the other day. Ukraine, quote unquote, launched British missiles and hit a Russian oil refinery. The Storm Shadow missiles, Ukraine doesn't have the capacity in Ukraine to launch those missiles. It was Britain who launched those missiles from inside Ukraine, British controlled. This is why Sergei Lavrov said this, because Russia understands that it's not Ukraine launching these missiles from inside Ukraine. It is NATO launching missiles inside Ukraine, saying that Ukraine's doing it, but it's really an attack on NATO. So he's saying, hey, if we hit that command center where you guys are launching those British missiles from with British personnel inside, they're going to fucking die. That's what Sergei Lavrov's saying. And then, sure enough, Donald Trump has a 2.5-hour conversation with Vladimir Putin the other day before Zelensky arrived. Zelensky, though, the day before was with Mark Carney up in Canada. You know, the London banker, the globalist central banker Carney over in Canada, who gave Zelensky like $6 billion before he went and met with Donald Trump. And right before this, the meeting with Zelensky, right after Putin got off the phone with him, there was a massive attack on Kiev a few hours before this. And Trump's probably like, hey, what's up, Putin? Why are you doing this? Well, Putin said, hey, they tried to assassinate me. Yeah. Putin told Trump about the assassination attempt within the last 6 hours. Russians are treating it as real. So drone attacks occurred directly in one of Putin's homes in Moscow. They tried to take him out. Now, maybe this is a Russian false flag. That's very possible. Not saying it's not. But you have Zelensky go out there, get billions of dollars from Canada. A week prior, Britain launches missiles from Ukraine into Russia at oil refineries and energy infrastructure. Russia retaliates, and this comes off of 3 Russian generals killed over the last 3 months, assassinated in Russia. So when I look at they tried to assassinate Putin, I kind of believe it. So what does that mean? I believe Trump and Putin have a plan. There's a few different things that came out of this last weekend. Trump on the call with Putin, drone strike. Oh, we talked about that one. President Trump reveals Putin wants to make Ukraine succeed. He's willing to work with Ukraine economically, even to the point of helping Ukraine with energy deals. This is Putin basically fortifying that the Donbass is ours. Get the hell out. It's ours. You got to remember, you go back to the Minsk agreements. The Minsk agreements basically said that, hey, look, the eastern Donbass region is off limits to Ukraine, that this is kind of Russian area and they don't want to be a part of Ukraine anymore. Zelensky continued to fight them and bomb them when he came in the power after 2018. And this is what prompted the special military operation to liberate the eastern Donbass. And then referendum through the eastern Donbass, through that whole area over there, Luhansk and so forth, they voted to be part of the Russian Federation and to leave Ukraine. Zelensky's trying to say, no, that's ours. Why? Because there's massive oil and minerals and gas out there. And Russia's basically saying, hey, look, we'll sell you very cheap oil from your own territory. So you got to remember, it's kind of like a slap in the face to Ukraine. But NATO and Britain, what they want to do is they want to remove Putin. They want to get Putin out of the way. And I said that if this progresses and peace doesn't come, there's going to be only 2 options that Putin is left with. Number 1 is to take out Zelensky, to kill Zelensky. Number 2 is to take Odessa. And I think that what we're about to see is exactly that plan come into play. I think that Russia's next move is going to be an attempt to take out Zelensky, and I think they're going to be very successful at it. And then I think that once Zelensky is down, they take Odessa. And if they take Odessa, the port directly to the Black Sea, this is economically devastating for Ukraine. Basically, Ukraine will cease to exist if they lose the port of Odessa. Not only that, is all the control of any port access from Europe to Odessa is shut off and controlled by Russia. Basically, it's checkmate. And NATO is forced into either all-out war or acquiescing. And we've talked about the money aspect of this. So this is going to be really interesting to see what happens over the course of the next few weeks. We have assassinations by intelligence agencies going on right now, MI6, and various French intelligence trying to take out Putin. So Putin is going to retaliate in kind, and he's most likely going to attempt to take out Zelensky because he's not going to attack NATO nations, because I think that's one agreement that he has with Donald Trump is do not attack NATO nations at all. Focus primarily on Ukraine if you're going to do anything, but stay out of civilian-filled areas. If he wants to take Odessa, that's going to be a bloodbath, but I believe that if he takes out Zelensky prior to this event happening, that Odessa will fall pretty naturally, at least from a military strategic perspective. That's what I would be doing if I was Putin. And Putin is just playing with Ukraine. He's elongating this because it's really the war of attrition for the European Union, for Europe. Okay, it's depleting NATO resources massively. And how do you basically collapse the globalist empire that's formed in Europe? Well, this is one of the methodologies to do that. And now the United States under Trump is pulling basically all support and proxy war support away from this whole region, including even the Middle Eastern region. Although there's fortification back with Iran today, with Israel. We'll talk about that tomorrow or something like that. So interesting enough is this was another signal sent to the UK, to the royal families, to the old guard, to the European elite that Trump is aligning with Putin, that he wants trade deals and peace with Putin, and that Zelensky and NATO better get their shit together or this is going to end up really bad really fast. And that's kind of what I got out of this last weekend. Many Americans are calling the U.S. to leave the United Nations after Somalia will be made president of the UN Security Council on January 1st. Listen, we should just leave the United Nations. You want to save $1 billion a year and defund 25% of the UN budget? Leave the UN. It's really that simple. It's like the UN is like a globalist organization that just hates people. Well, shit, that's exactly what it is. All right. We're going to get into Venezuela and a few other topics here in a second. I got to wet my whistle. Give me a second. I just spilled that all over myself. I know you guys all saw that. Man, the chat is hot tonight. What's up, people? I'm coming off of celebrating my 44th birthday yesterday. Hope you're all doing well. And if you want to support myself and my one-man venture, the Red Pill Project, guys, there's a lot of different ways to do that. There's ways to support us directly on our website. That's redpills.tv. redpills.tv. And if you go there, you'll find social media, ways to support us and by following us on social media, and then ways to donate and help support the Red Pill Project, decentralized media, everything that I do here. And you can find that on redpills.tv at the bottom of the screen. There's 2 buttons. You can check that out. You can go subscribe with a premium membership on any of our platforms, redpillproject.substack.com, x.com. We're on there at Real Joshua Reed. You can support me over there, as well as Locals and socialredpill.com, which is our private social network. So many different ways to support us. Appreciate all the support over the years. You guys are the only reason that this is still happening. So appreciate you more than you know. All right. So Trump, phase 2 in Venezuela. Army Delta Force to carry out land operations. And I said, hey, this remind anybody of Operation Just Cause? You know, when we went into Panama and Noriega and Delta Force, all of that stuff. It kind of does, doesn't it? And the Trump administration took its first land strikes inside Venezuela today. They shifted for containment to direct action. They bombed the shit out of a boat loading port for drug smugglers owned by cartels today. And I can assure you that you can expect many more inland strikes to occur over the course of the next week or so. The U.S. drops $11.1 billion weapons deal on Taiwan and dares China to react. This was last week. This is so important. okay? Because you got to see what's going on here. So the U.S. just signed off on an $11.1 billion arms package for Taiwan, the biggest ever, making it crystal clear this island isn't just a local issue. By now, it should be crystal clear that messing with Taiwan is seen as a global power play. The entire conflict is about locking down the Indo-Pacific, where the U.S. is trying to block China from dominating trade routes, tech supply chains, and military influence near its rivals. Taiwan is a flashpoint. If China takes it, Beijing gets way more than land. It's leverage over chips, shipping lanes, and everyone in the neighborhood. Washington is putting money on the table, risking blowback. Yes, blowback. We're going to talk about the blowback here in a second, and drawing a line to defend its sphere of influence. It's one more sign that the bigger global shift, cooperation is out, power blocks are in, and everybody's picking signs the world's big players aren't chasing a shared order anymore. They are locking down their regions, their supply chains, their allies before someone else does. That is probably the most true statement that you've heard all day. The world's big players aren't chasing a shared New World Order anymore. They're locking down their regions, their supply chains, and their allies before someone else does. From Eastern Europe to the Middle East to East Asia, the game has turned defensive, zero-sum, hyper-local, with Taiwan caught dead center. Now, this was last week that this happened. Now, the title of it, $11.1 billion arms deal to Taiwan, and dares China to react. Anybody been paying attention to what's going on with China and Taiwan right now? Anybody pay attention what's going into effect on January 1st? See, China reacted. So the export restrictions on silver, which caused the silver price this last week to skyrocket past $81 from Shanghai. Do you understand what that was about? That was China saying, fuck around and find out. Because the Western global economy, the industrial nations that have silver in every single bomb and missile and satellite, they need that silver from China, which is 34% of the global supply. And China just said, hey, you remember a few months ago when we put restrictions on rare earth minerals and metals and the stock market went all wanky and Trump had to intervene and bring out a new trade deal with China by increasing tariffs to 200% almost immediately? You remember that? Well, they just did it with silver. And saying on January 1st, we're going to only trade silver with people who can get permission from the People's Liberation Army. And if it's for defense, you're not going to get it. So silver skyrocketed. So basically, they're withholding parts of the silver supply. This is why silver skyrocketed. Don't think it's going to go to the moon. It's not. This is temporary. These are moves and counter moves. Then, what does China do starting yesterday? They surrounded Taiwan with war games. China ramps up defenses. You don't fucking dare. Taiwan's Ministry of Defense flipped the switch on an emergency response center. They're rolling out snap combat readiness exercises in the face of China's big Just Mission 2025 drill set for tomorrow. They started today. China's Eastern Theater Command dropped news saying it's all about testing maritime and air patrols, locking down ports, and sending a stern warning against the independence idea. And they're doing live fire exercises surrounding Taiwan. And this is happening right now as we speak. This is China's response to the United States' $11.1 billion deal, defense deal with Taiwan. Trump said, fuck around and find out. And China said, okay, we're going to find out. Let's go. Not only did they do that, they put trade restrictions on silver, as we just talked about. Well, why would they do that? Because this is unrestricted warfare. This isn't about kinetic engagement. This is about utilizing economics, utilizing trade and resource engagement. I've said from the beginning that everything that you are watching is all about the control of resources around the globe. That all wealth, if you watch our DEF CON episode a few weeks ago, all wealth is pertained from resources. That the future of tomorrow, the technology being developed, the infrastructure being laid is dependent upon resources. So another one, starting January 1st, 2026, China will require government licenses for all silver exports. Yeah, exactly. This is China pushing back against the United States about the $11.1 billion deal to Taiwan. And China came out just a few months ago and they said, hey, keep on fucking with Taiwan and you're going to find out. And this is what China's doing, the PLA. Now, does it mean that Xi Jinping and Putin and Trump aren't in a sovereign alliance and have an idea? Yeah, they do. But you have to remember, you go back to that one statement. This is about a multipolar world, and this is about regional stability and controlling various resources and trade routes and economies around the world to help build the next future of this planet, the technological infrastructure that is going to implement AI and so forth. And whoever controls these resources is going to be the top dog. And Taiwan is a big piece of that puzzle in the context of chipset making and trade routes, specifically going in and out of Japan and China and Singapore and Korea. So with that being said, China has all intentionality to go out there and control Taiwan. And by the way, they've already influenced Taiwanese politics to the point where the next election in Taiwan is probably going to fall in support of China and going back with China, which that means that there's going to have to be some type of engagement if the U.S. wants to preserve that between now and then. So China is flexing its muscles economically and showing out military embargo within the Taiwan area, specifically because the United States is trying to basically rein in that, hey, this region is ours and we control this. China saying, fuck you. No, it's not. Now, what does that mean? It means that there's just a bigger piece of the puzzle of the global unfolding conspiracy that's happening. That yes, there's this globalist dismantling that's occurring. The old guard is being decimated. We have to wait until those financial chains and those illicit crime organizations are dismantled before you actually go after the deep state and begin mass arrest, before that whole system collapses. But then at the same time that system is being collapsed, this other system, the multipolar world, is being established. And now you have fighting head in head, and where China or US and Russia are trying to come to a toe, which is being interfered with the European side. But China and Russia already have a deal. And I've already said this, that the Europe, NATO don't matter when it comes to a direct kinetic engagement between the US and China. The only other country that matters is Russia. If Russia and China are allies in a war against the United States of America, you better cross your fingers, because it might not work out to our benefit. And Europe, Israel, none of those, Australia, none of those nations matter in that type of war engagement. On the other hand, if Russia and the United States are alliances, and China wouldn't even think about a kinetic war, just won't happen. They would lose immediately. So Russia is the big key here. Then the other part of this is the control of the supply chain, the control of the economies, the control of resources, oil, gas, and energy, rare earth minerals and metals. This is so critically important to the next stages of what happens through the multipolar world. But if you want a global homogeneity to lead us into this multipolar world, and not China be able to toe and toe with the United States where they take off and then we take off, but you want some type of competitive landscape to where you still have an advantage over China, then you have to do what Donald Trump is doing specifically. But China is fighting back because they understand the pressure that's being exerted on them. So really interesting how this is all unfolding. Because you got multiple domains of the battlefield that are playing out right now. And from a military strategic component, you have two major wars that are being fought at the same time. Number one is the war against the old guard and the deep state, which Donald Trump is absolutely winning. And he has to dismantle that system prior to arresting the deep state actors and collaborators. Then at the same time, you have the China problem in the context of the multipolar world that is coming about, that has its tentacles within a lot of this old guard infrastructure, illicit crime organizations through the Belt and Roads Initiative, but have been primarily focused on centralizing all of the resources around the world, Africa, South America, Central America, into their grips, because in a multipolar world, it's he who controls the resources and the energy is going to lead the world technologically into the future. So the United States right now is playing dual faction, fighting one silent war over here and fighting another silent war over here, trying to stop and contain China to the point where they can control the base mineral energy and metal support around the world and get these deals and negotiations. This is what Trump's national security strategy came out with, talking about the Western Hemisphere is off limits to Russia and China. It's ours. Stay the fuck out. But then Trump is also asserting his power and reign and force in the Middle East, but he's done that through defense cooperation agreements and various different deals. He's also trying to do that in Eastern Europe with deals with Russia on the control of the various different assets in the Donbass after the Ukraine conflict ends. This is why Europe is pushing back, because they wanted those assets. But then he's also doing it in the sense of Taiwan with a trade route configuration. And honestly, I don't think Donald Trump cares too much about Taiwan specifically as of 5 years from now, but right now it is a critical point of juncture because we have to build the manufacturing, processing, and facilities here in the United States of America, which TCMC is building one actually in Arizona for the chipset making. Once you have that transferred off of that island and you get all military assets off of that island, I don't think he really cares too much about them taking it, because the trade routes and supplies will be negotiated through the multipolar world and how trade actually is going to function through various different trade deals that are fair for everybody in that context. But you have to have this leverage power base prior to that actually happening. So lots of shit happening, lots of crazy things around the world. And it's really interesting to watch it unfold. And I know you guys enjoy it too. I'm going to be back with you tomorrow to go over more of this. I'm actually going to bring this guy up. I wanted to do one more before I go here. I think I've mentioned this. This is, if you guys are interested in this, go on over to Rumble and you can find this out there, the Life Water. There's a reason you don't hear much about molecular hydrogen in mainstream health. It isn't a drug. It isn't patented. And there's not much money to be made selling better water. Molecular hydrogen is created by running a small electric current through water, producing a form that dissolves into the water and can be absorbed by the body. It's been studied for reducing oxidative stress and inflammation, two of the biggest drivers of chronic pain, joint stiffness, and slow recovery. A lot of that research is tracked by the Molecular Hydrogen Institute out of Utah, and the technology has been used quietly in clinics and by professional athletes for years, especially around injury and physical wear and tear. The LifeWater hydrogen bottle makes it accessible. You add tap water, press a button, and in about 3 minutes, the water visibly changes. It's not a stimulant, and it doesn't mask symptoms. The goal is supporting the body's own recovery process. LifeWater publishes third-party lab tests, which matter with this kind of technology. Right now, it's about $80 with a 50% promo backed by a 60-day money-back guarantee. If you have a loved one dealing with pain, inflammation, and recovery issues, this is the gift that actually makes sense. Learn more. Go to buylifewater.com or scan the QR code on the screen on Rumble for more information. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. All right. How we doing out there? Thanks for all the birthday wishes, guys. I appreciate you. It's going to be a crazy week. Now, a few different things. We got New Year's Eve is Wednesday. New Year's Day is Thursday. There will be a show on Thursday. New Year's Eve, I don't know yet. I will update you tomorrow on that once I know what's going on. But that's like one of my other favorite holidays, like Christmas and 4th of July. So it might just be a holiday on me for that. But depends on what's happening in the world and what else is going on. I'm going to leave you with this great music that I wrote and that we produced and got out there for you. I love you guys. Much love, respect. Don't forget, visit us over at redpills.tv to help support us and with everything that we do. Much love, respect. God bless. Take care. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.
There was a time when our children stood tall, hand on their hearts, one voice for all. There was a time when honor had weight, when the flag was a symbol, not a debate. There was a time when our history was known, with pride in the rules that made us our own. There was a time, respect for the brave, for those who bled, for the lives they gave. Now the homeland burns into silent war. Truth is twisted, we can't ignore. Through the smoke, a voice still calls. We the a time when truth was clear, when the media served, not ruled by fear. There was a time when leaders stood fast, guarding the people, defending the past. Now corruption wears a crown, lies are fed to tear us down. But Q said watch, and Q said see. The silent war will set us free. From the front lines, soldiers stare, wondering if we're still there. Their blood, their hope, their sacrifice will not be sold for a last prize. There was a time, but the time isn't near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light, the veil undone. Patriots rise, we are one. Land of the free, home of the brave. No more silence, no more slaves. Answer the call, take back the fight. Children of freedom, stand for the light.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on. Or we will spend our sunset years telling our children what it was once like in the United States where men were free.
There was a time, the time is near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light, veil undone. Patriots rise, we are one. Land of the free, home of the brave. No more silence, no more slaves. Answer the call, take back the fight. Children of freedom, stand for the light. There was a time. There was a time. Now is the time. Do it.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation. I want you to get mad.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
The more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.
These people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!